Hello, everyone. We are live. Thank you so very much for joining us for today's chat show, all about side hustle journeys. Oh, there's a bit of an echo. Do one of you ladies have another open with me talking? Someone's. Let me just mute someone here. Let me see. Okay. Nope, that's not good. Oh God. That is like, oh, wait, it stopped. Yay, we are normal sounding again. Sorry, everyone. That was like, what happened there? Sorry, guys, that was just a technical difficulty. I'm hearing myself in 50 different ways. Okay, so that was a good start. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Now, here's the thing. Technology is never friendly, but it can always be fixed. Just close down a bunch of windows is basically what I did. And maybe it was on my end as well about what was going on there. Thank you for joining us. We're talking all about side hustle journeys today. And of course, we're not doing it alone. I have brought in 3 ladies with me. One of them you don't see yet, Ina, is going to come on board as soon as she can. She's just changing browsers to watch us. If you're watching us actually from outside of Crowdcast, which is where we're hosting this chat show, please come on into Crowdcast. So you might be watching it from our Facebook pages, our YouTube channel, our Facebook group, wherever you are watching this live stream. The real conversation is actually going to be happening here at Crowdcast, where you have a chance to actually contribute to the conversation, to ask questions, and for us to help you workshop your side hustle ideas, if that's what you're bringing to the table today. And so come join us with the link. There's a link that's in the post that's either on the YouTube channel or the Facebook page or groups. Click onto Crowdcast. You'll come on here on board to join us here, and then we can take your questions and you can be more involved in the conversation. Now, some quick housekeeping tips before we get officially started is, if you're new to Crowdcast, hello, and thank you for coming. And you can also invite your friends and family or whoever it is that you think should be watching this chat show or being involved in this conversation about starting side hustles. Just hover over to the top right-hand corner. There's an invite button on the top right-hand corner. You can share that in your social media channels, and they can actually watch the replay whenever they register for free, and they can watch this conversation over again. Now, we also have an Ask a Question menu item right below the video. You'll see Ask a Question. It's next to polls and call to action. And if you click on that, you can actually start to ask a question right now about your side hustle idea, any questions about career transitions, and anything that pops up for you guys as we have this discussion today. You can pop it over the Ask a Question tab, and that way we can timestamp it for you when we answer that question, and you can go back into it and quickly watch it again, which is sort of nice and efficient. But also, if you have to pop away, like I know right now it's like dinner time for some of our time zones here in Pacific time and Eastern time, and you can pop away and come back later and actually get your questions answered, which is always nice. So say hello to us if you're in the chat box. If you're visiting today and it's your first time, tell us where you're from, your name, and what excites you about starting a side hustle, and maybe a little bit of a snippet about your side hustle as well would be great. Now, I know it's summer, so a lot of people have actually emailed me a few times actually before we started the broadcast, is that they're not able to always make the entire broadcast. Some people are coming at the tail end. Some people are like, I'm going to be late. So don't worry. There is a replay that will be sent. So if you're registered, we have about over 50 people registered for this particular chat show. So when you are registered, you will definitely get the replay for this, because I think it'll be an important discussion to contribute to. So to get started, I should probably introduce myself in case you don't know who I am. I'm Leigh, the founder of Screw the Cubicle. I'm also the head facilitator at the Academy of Cubicle Crashers. If you click on the green button right underneath the video, you'll find out more about our twice a year cohort that we run at the Academy, where we help people to create, grow, and launch our businesses. And joining me today are some of the students from the Academy for us to be able to share what the journey kind of looks like. And so we want to get really raw and real about not only going, oh my God, everything's amazing, and side hustles are totally easy. Because you know what, we're real here, right? At Screw the Cubicle, we want to actually document what that looks like for you. So it's really going to be a combination of not just like some practical tips about starting a business, but we're also really going to talk about the emotional journey it takes when you transition from a 20-year career, when you decide to quit your job and pursue something of the unknown, when you start to test out ideas and it's not going where you need it to go, how have you pivoted and recalibrated? And we don't know what those journeys look like, because very likely what you're watching on social media is all the success stories and all the, it's amazing and everyone can do it. And you get very demotivated when your journey doesn't look like that, right? So this is going to be like a raw and real conversation all about that. So why don't we get started? And I'm going to help Ina get on board. So maybe by introducing yourself so they know a little bit about your background, where you're at right now, what do you do, or where was your old career came from? I know, Heather, you've quit your job, so you have a different sort of story. And what has your journey been so far for you, and what's your business about? Heather, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Pollock. I am one of the students at the Academy, and I've been working with Lydia for about the last year or so. Late last year in 2017, I had started a new job after doing working in publishing for quite some time, and started a new job with this great little startup company. And about 2 months in, got made redundant from my job. So I got thrust into the world of entrepreneurialism and entrepreneurship quite suddenly, but it was a good thing because it was something that the push that I needed to get going. I'd been dabbling for a while, and I'm not sure that I would have taken the leap quite as quickly if I hadn't been pushed. So it was a blessing in disguise. So I have a few backgrounds. I started out as a teacher, and then I moved into educational publishing, and then I worked with schools and stuff, doing a few things in my career. And since then, I've been doing a few things. I've been exploring a few different avenues, but right now, the business that I'm focusing on is doing social media strategy and management for other solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and people who are like coaches and creatives. And that's the path that I found myself on. And I'm currently focusing on that, as well as still exploring some other things on the side, because there's always lots to be looking at and exploring.
Yeah, and I'll talk to you a little bit later about, because you've done some pivots, right, to your side hustle. And I think a lot of people sometimes feel that if things change, that feels like a failure, but it doesn't have to be. Right. But it's a mindset thing, isn't it? Because we've talked about it. When that happens to you, you're like, it's over. I have to throw in the towel, and and it doesn't have to be that way. So we want to sort of help people think differently when they do reach a block, what has happened. But I think your story is a great one to sort of see where that pivot is. And by the way, it never stops pivoting. Right. I've changed my business angles like 8 or 9 times by now in a 5-year period of time. So that doesn't mean that I failed in those 8 to 9 times. It just means that I changed and my messaging changed, or my cause, changed slightly to know where I want to position myself. And I think that happens with growth, right? And a little bit more when you do the work, isn't it? So we'll talk more about that story with you. Leigh, can you introduce yourself? Tell people a little bit more about your story, your background, and what you're looking to launch in due time.
Great. Hi, everyone. I am Leigh. I am by career a nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner, a pediatric nurse practitioner for about 25 years. Prior to that, I was a registered nurse and worked at a hospital. So I've always showed up and been an employee. And as I was in the healthcare field, I also had this side passion as it relates to health and nutrition and lifestyle, and kind of am nerdy in that area. So I've had this lifelong passion, and I just started wanting to have a place to express that and put that information out for other people and perhaps help people in that way. But my initial marketing plan was quite poor. I wanted to do this. I wanted to put my stuff out there, but I didn't want to tell anybody about it. Right. It's pretty darn safe that way. So after taking a lot of steps on my own, realizing point where I really needed some guidance and help, about 6 months ago, I signed up to work with Lydia, and I am also one of the ACC students, and it was a great decision. It's made me accountable to what I said I would set out to do. And Lydia is refreshingly honest about everything, because it is, you get very disillusioned by all the claims out there. You do this one thing, and or you have to have this, and I got mixed up in the tornado of things, and I learned a lot, but I couldn't connect it together. So I still work 30 hours a week as a nurse practitioner. I still enjoy that role. And then as a side hustle, I'm doing this and building a business where I want to help women. I think I'm primarily going to help women above the age of 40, and perhaps talk mainly to entrepreneurs about nutrition and lifestyle, and how using simple tools that seem quite separate from everyday life to just up level you, not only in your business, but in your life, to give you more energy or focus, all that stuff. So I have made some good strides, and because of the accountability of the group, I think it's challenged me just to show up and take one step forward and not hide anymore. So,
and be accountable to yourself, right? That execution part is the hardest part for people. Like, there's more than enough information out there about how to launch a business. We are no stranger to the tricks and tips on what has to happen in a small business. But the difference is sometimes it is overwhelming because it is on a formula that's given by someone who did it that way. And not always that formula applies to how we want to do business. And I think a lot of discussions we always have the Academy is like, yes, there's best practices for a lot of things, but how you approach that practice in business, whether it's marketing, to your offers, to how you promote yourself, that doesn't have to be a cookie cutter way of doing it, right? There's personalities that you have to think about, your own way of an approach or perspective that's very, can be customized to how you want to put yourself out there, which I think is super important. Now, the first question I think a lot of people always ask is, how do you even know to pursue a particular idea? What if you don't have, there's two types of people when it comes to people that struggle with side hustles. Is either I don't have any ideas for a side hustle, or I have too many ideas and I can't pick. And so there's this sort of like discernment that happens. So it'll be interesting to find out, like, how did you guys sort of realize that this is something that I'm willing to be curious about, I'm willing to pursue, like for some side hustle ideas, people know right away is an industry they've been in. It's just that they're frustrated with the current industry they're in, and they want to disrupt that. They want to do something different. They want to remain in that industry, but they no longer want to do it like that anymore. And that instigates the motivation to start something to disrupt that. And then for some other people, it's actually they start side hustles that have nothing to do with their resumes, and they actually start to look at problems or things that they know about that they can help to contribute solutions to. I'll be interested to know a bit more about that background story about you guys. Heather, would you like to sort of share a little bit about how you stumbled upon social media? I mean, it wasn't an overnight stumble. How did that journey sort of pan out for you?
Well, I'm one of those people that has a lot of ideas, and I've kind of done both sides of the coin, where I started out exploring a business that was somewhat related to my previous life as a teacher, and dealing with helping people create events, learning events. And so I was exploring that. And as I was going through that, and I had a bit of a pivot with that as well. So I had started kind of going down one path with that, and then kind of pivoted a little bit. And as I was exploring that, wasn't working. So I'd lost, like I said, I'd been made redundant, so I'd lost my job. So I kind of needed the quick win. I needed the right for right now business. And I literally just kind of stumbled into it as I was looking at other things, and just kind of a quick way to start making some money while still being remote and working online, something that could be flexible. And it started out kind of as a little bit of a different thing. And then it kind of moved into social media, because I realized that, this is kind of the way everyone's communicating now. This is where a lot of businesses are advertising. This is a lot of where people are building tribes and communities. And I started to realize that it was a little bit more than just, here's Facebook, here's a pretty picture, here's, me showing off my great life. It really could be a tool for people to bring communities and tribes and connect people and have conversations and connection with other people. So it started just as a quick, like, right for right now business. And it kind of morphed a little bit more into this idea that I'm still kind of exploring, but just how it can be used as a tool to better bring people together and help connect people, in groups like the Academy, or with the mentor that you might want to work with, or with other people that you just have a shared interest with. So again, it was just one of those things that it was like, oh, this is a quick win, let's do this. And as you do things, you start to see new angles, and you start to have other questions, and you start to see new ways, or new paths that you might want to explore. And that's just what's happened. I've just kind of followed the curiosity and the questions and the interest. And I'm still exploring, really.
Yeah, and I think that exploration just in a way doesn't come without you looking for it, right? Where you're not looking for answers to just come to you. You have to actually consciously go out there to find the problems, you know? And I know one of the things that you did a lot around is interviewing people, right? Like it started from an audience that potentially you could teach how to teach, you know, which is very related to your background. But then you found out this other problem that was happening. It's like, yeah, I could teach them that, but also they're really bad at presenting themselves digitally, and they don't actually know even what is the thing that they do that's really special in order to position themselves as an expert.
Exactly.
You know?
It came a lot down to conversation. That's kind of my buzzword right now for myself personally, is a little bit of a personal project, is having good conversations, asking better questions, and actually asking the questions. I think a lot of times people who are, offering a service or building a program or offering a course or retreat, have a really great expertise and a really great foundation of knowledge that is really valuable to share with people. But it is a lot of the communication and the conversations around it that I think sometimes fall short, and people just maybe sometimes aren't utilizing the tools they have. Especially in this day and age of internet and all these social channels that we have access to for free. It is the greatest, most powerful marketing tool, and it is virtually free if you do it right. So it just that's kind of just how it, like you said, as I started working with people and was still kind of exploring my other side hustle, and then doing this, the two started to mesh together, and I realized, there was some frustrations as I started to do the work and started working with different businesses, and I was like, oh, wait a second. If you did this, or have you tried this, or this is kind of, a little bit salesy or sleazy, and I don't like that. So I'd like to have more kind of this angle that I work with people. So it was just through the doing that it started to, formulate these kind of questions and trigger points that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. And I think a great learning there from that experience is that sometimes when you hit a wall with an idea, is that there's opportunity around that, in the sense of like, if that's not the problem you want to solve, then what other problems are branching from these conversations you are having with this customer? Because in a way, the customer didn't really change for you. You're still dealing with business owners. You're still dealing with service-based, business owners. You're still dealing with people who actually want to impact, in some way, being a coach, a therapist, nutritionist, something of service, to the world. But you're just pivoting your services to be more of a social storyteller. Right? That's sort of how I describe you a lot. It's like, you're not a social media strategist, because that's so bland for you, in my opinion. You're a social storyteller. And social storytellers are not just about social media only. Social storytellers can be, it's about, like, if you showed up for an interview like this, or show up for a podcast interview, you're telling your story in that capacity as well. And part of your way with words, or your way of understanding how people absorb information, your background as a teacher, that really helps you to go, how do you get concise with telling your story these ways, or telling your stories in different angles? Because in a way, as a background as a teacher, guess what you've had to do? One student didn't learn it that way, and you have to figure out a way to teach that concept with shapes or drawings, or, like a teacher's job is always like, how can I teach 12 different ways?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So in a way, you actually did end up repurposing a lot of what you knew how to do, as a teacher, but you're just utilizing that or leveraging that strength in a different outcome or for a different audience, right? So it's actually interesting when we acknowledge that, we're actually not starting from scratch. We're actually utilizing or repurposing a lot of the strengths we already come with.
Yeah, which is, I think, been one of my biggest epiphanies, where you think you're kind of doing something that
brand new,
you kind of have no business doing, because you're like, well, I don't know how to do this. And really, if you really break it down, and sometimes it takes that outside person or outside group to kind of say, but have you thought of it this way? And you go, oh, yeah, I didn't, but that makes total sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Leigh? Like, when did you know that you wanted to stay in your industry of health and wellness? Was it something that sort of you saw happening in your, over many decades of career, to sort of go, I don't want to do it like this anymore, and if it was up to me, I would do it differently? Like, when was that moment for you?
Well, I definitely have, in my role, let me back up. I definitely have a much more holistic approach than you typically see in Western medicine. So there's parts of Western medicine that frustrate me. I think in the ideal world, every healthcare provider should be holistic, because we're not chopped up little parts. We're a whole human being, and the inputs we give ourselves are much bigger than, a pharmaceutical drug. So It probably happened about 3 years ago when I had a lot to say on the subject. And I just wanted some place to put it. And I thought, oh, you know what? I think I just want to get a website and start a blog. So I'll have a voice. And if anyone does approach me and they're interested, I'm not one of those that will go up and just talk in people's face and tell them what they need to know. Right. If they come to me, then so I thought, oh, I'm going to, just get this simple little blog going. And then, one thing stumbled into the next, and I'm like, wow, people actually kind of create a business out of this thing. Maybe I should do that, because why would I put that much energy in and not get something back out of that? So that sent me on this then I got, oh, well, maybe I need to get this certification, and maybe I need to. So that kind of led me down a path. But the original motivation for me was just having a place where I could put the information that I feel like is so hugely valuable for people, and a place to put my opinion and my bent on things, truly out of the desire to help someone, and then getting kind of sidetracked with the business idea and trying to educate myself in that regard. So, so it's been probably 3.5 years now. So it's time to step out and do it. And
go from less of a blog into the action of actually performing in your service. Yeah.
And I love this is kind of an aside, but Heather, I love what you said, because I have been amazed at how hard it is to know things in my head so intimately, but have the struggle with being able to articulate that out.
Right.
That's one thing that I felt so, very much like an idiot, that I cannot articulate to someone what all is in my head. So I think what you'll be providing is going to be huge. And I may have to call you one day to have you help me.
Fantastic. So. I can't wait. Fantastic.
That's right. Now, Ina, I think you are on board now. I've unmuted you because I know you're sitting in a cafe. Are you there?
And it's unfortunately super loud. And I missed part of the conversation. I don't know, the internet in my studio cracked. So that's like Bali pleasure.
Right. You are in Bali, so everyone knows that now. Well, actually, we were just talking a little bit about how we got started with knowing there was a work that we wanted to pursue as a side hustle, but also people don't know you and what you do. So you can do a quick introduction about where you came from, how you even got to a place like Bali to begin with, and what is that side hustle idea that you're currently pursuing?
I'm just gonna tell a bit of a story then. So this is my side hustle basically is my teaching. So I'm a Pilates teacher, which is what I was doing all morning, which is why it is so noisy here now, because I'm just in between teaching next to my studio. And I came to Bali 2.5 years ago, actually to rather build a business. So that's my way to do. And what my business is about is, because I heard you guys were speaking about this, I gonna work with entrepreneurs on a body, mind, and business context. So I include these things, I kind of mix them together, and have the first step is kind of building on resilience for people, building the physical, emotional, and spiritual energy up, and then working on their mindset, because this is where we mostly get stuck, I figured. Is stepping over our own belief system, because we think we're not enough, or we imposter a lot. And I thought this is going to be one of the topics in here today as well. And then work on business strategies. Yes. And then what was the second?
I think you already said it. What you're going to be doing as a side hustle, what you're pursuing as a side hustle.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
So for me, it's not going to be like a side hustle. So rather, my side hustle is actually my teaching, and this is going to be a whole sort of business. So I'm pursuing this as a full business, and I never really did a side hustle thing. I went full on. So I quit my job and then did my side hustling. Always was my teaching.
Yeah.
And I had this before, so I always had this second kind of leg, this second kind of foundation that always helped me over water financial wise, and so I can kind of focus on really creating the business.
Yeah.
So I do have two kind of income streams, which always help me, obviously.
Yeah.
And gives you a lot of security for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's always what we advise as well at Screw the Cubicle. It's like, don't quit that job if you're not forced out like Heather, right? Which is sort of like a push into, which, turned out well. I mean, you've been traveling, you've been more of a global nomad, but not everybody's kind of that risky, right? I want to jump off a cliff and hope the parachute opens kind of people, right? So we need calculated risk. And actually the best time to pursue a side hustle is actually when you are still employed. Because you're funding yourself and not feeling that financial pressure. But, sometimes some people actually do take that leap and they have saved up money and they have freelanced themselves on a part-time level to do so, move to a place like Bali where life expenses are less expensive, right? And then you can sort of play around more strategically, right, with what you want to pursue and allow yourself to have some failures and not it to be detrimental, to your livelihood on a daily basis. Now, I want to talk a little bit about fears. I'm just going to mute you, Ina, until we come back to you. Thank you for that introduction. I want to talk a little bit about some fears and obstacles that are to be anticipated when people start to change their lives and when they start to pursue things that they've never done before. Lots of the heebie-jeebies come at this time. I know what my fears were, but I think a lot of fears are pretty common. But it would be cool for you guys to share what are those fears for people to anticipate when they're about to start a side hustle or start making changes, right, into where they spend their time, how they're pursuing their side hustle ideas, and so forth. What were some of the fears that you had to overcome or obstacles that you had to overcome? And what did you have to do to make that happen for yourself so that you weren't stuck somewhere and just, revolving in that fear, letting that fear-mongering monster talk you out of things all the time? What were some of the strategies that you've had to put in place in order to bypass fear and get scare-sighted, right? A big key word we use at the Academy is like half excited, half scared, which is usually the feeling you're trying to look for if you're trying to go somewhere, new. And how did you make sure that you could pursue that without getting stuck at where you are? Heather, what was sort of in your way, you think, most of the time when you've had to pursue something that was uncommon for you?
For me, I think it was being a bit of perfectionist. So not a bit, a lot of a perfectionist. So like choosing the one idea that I thought I was going to live and die with as a business. Right. Like I still had that mindset of, but if I start this and it doesn't work, then what, and that's kind of the whole point of business is you should be starting things to explore and then see, and then working out what doesn't work, because that's a learning process. So there was that. And then there was also just putting myself out there and just kind of being public about it. Much like Leigh said, like it's kind of safe. It feels much safer to kind of be in your own little bubble and not tell anybody, especially those closest to you. It's much easier to have a conversation with a peer or someone that you don't really know as opposed to friends and family sometimes. So I think that was the other thing, was just kind of being quite public about it, particularly when I didn't even know for sure where things were going. So right. to be talking about it and be public and sharing and asking questions and inviting people to collaborate with me when I didn't maybe have the end point really clear in my mind, or the middle for that matter. So that's still an ongoing struggle for me. So that's one of the things that's because I'm still exploring things and still kind of figuring out what my the business is going to be, if I can even say that, because I think that, like Ina too, there's going to be multiple income streams. I think I'd like to have a setup where I'm doing different things. I have lots of ideas. I'm a multi-passionate, so I don't want to pigeonhole myself into one thing. And for me, really, it's just been action. It's actually just doing it and putting yourself out there and just, putting the post up on social media or asking that person to have a call or, just exploring the things and realizing that people don't really care that much. Like they're not really paying that much attention to you. They do care and they do want to be supportive, but it's not like everyone's waiting on, for your next your next Facebook post and they're judging everything you say and do. Really, it's, so I mean, I think really just kind of getting out of my own head about what, is kind of monumental and what's not. It's just forward motion and actually doing the action and asking the questions and putting yourself out there. Which I think is a good habit in any capacity, whether you're starting a side hustle or not. So for me, it's just been action and understanding that everyone has to start somewhere. So, and there's only way you're going to learn and grow is by starting and doing something and asking and, exploring and, you know, gaining the knowledge. Otherwise, you're always going to be a beginner and you're always going to be in the same place.
That's right. And also to think about whenever we've had to pursue our own careers, like however long you've been, you know, a teacher or
did the same thing.
A doctor or a nurse, whatever you are, you didn't complain then.
Yeah, that's right. And the assumption was,
right, exactly. The assumption was that, hey, you have to start somewhere. You go to get a degree and you hopefully get an internship and, you know, and so forth. And we do what it takes.
That's
and
right.
It takes even longer usually to climb up the corporate ladder than it is to launch a business. But instead, we actually get into $100,000 of debt to go to school. But that seems all right because we were told that was normal. So we sort of follow that trajectory and we don't think anything has gone wrong. But in business, you know, because we see such success stories all the time out there, when we're not receiving that large scale success, we think we failed, right? Or we think we're not good enough. And that is a sort of a bit of a confirmation bias, right? That happens around that time because most of the time we are our own echo chamber of what we think we know. And we're just seeing what we absorb and not really talking to the people to go, is this really the process of what's been going on? You know, and that are these, is what I'm doing actually just part of the process, that part of the trial and error, part of the talking to a bunch of people and sort of changing directions sometimes is part of the process. And I think when we know that's normal, you know, we no longer like avoid, you know, that confrontation. We don't avoid failure because we know that we actually have to fumble up a little bit in order to get clearer, right, about the path forward.
Exactly.
I think this is also a good time to answer one of the questions that came by email. Just checking my inbox and making sure that we're putting people's questions on board here and get them answered for them. But actually, it's the second. Let me just one of those Pam's. I'm just going to start answering it and click on the button so you have a timestamp, Pam, for yourself. Actually, this goes in conjunction with fear, and I think a lot of you guys have something to talk about here. Pam asked, "How do I deal with negative feedback or rejection when we're trying to put our work out there? For example, explaining to our friends and family about our pursuits." Okay, so Heather, you're smiling there, so I have a feeling you've got something to say about that. And then we'll sort of do a little round robin and see if there's anyone that has any advice around that. So what would your advice for Pam be?
I would say stop asking for advice from friends and family. Honestly, I've learned the hard way. People want to be supportive and people want to make sure that you're okay. And sometimes that can come across negatively in the sense that they're trying to warn you about, you know, something that could go wrong or, you know, what if. And I think the better thing to do is just to, you know, if you want to share with them, tell them. But don't ask for advice and don't open the door for their opinions, to be honest. You know, just say, this is what I'm doing. And if you want to follow along on the journey, you can see things here, you can read about this. But honestly, I had to learn the hard way because your friends and family are the ones that you usually turn to first for advice or for even excitement. Like, hey, I'm doing this great thing. And then if they don't see it in the same way you do, it can be for me, it can be extremely demotivating. And it's something that I've had to learn to stop inviting their opinion or their advice on things and find the people that really get it, you know. So something like the Academy, if you can mention the Academy, like me and Leigh, if we have a discussion about things, she understands really what it's like from the inside rather than, you know, the friend that's maybe trying to protect you from failure because everyone, you know, thinks that starting your own business is such a risk when in reality, you know, I was in a corporate job and a supposedly stable, secure job and I lost it. So, I mean, really starting a business is no less risky. In fact, I think it's probably less risky because I have much more control over what I'm doing and the direction and stuff that I'm pursuing. So I would say, Pam, just, you know, be careful what you ask for from your friends and family.
Be careful who you ask. And if you want a more motivating answer, then ask at least the people that are either like-minded like you, that have the same goals. So, you know, or someone that's ahead of you, someone that's doing something that you dream to do. That's probably a better person to ask for advice rather than someone that isn't corporate, you know, that is scared about starting a business. They're not really going to tell you the answer you want to hear.
Yeah. And a lot of times their fears come out, right? You know, if they're stuck in a job and they don't really love it and they think, oh, well, secretly I'd like to start a job or my own business, but fears holding them back, they can project those fears onto you and they can manifest in what supposedly support and good advice, but it really is their fears that then you can absorb. So yeah, I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Leigh? Have you sort of had this moment as well where you've had people judge you in your personal life about pursuing a side hustle?
You know, my reality was that I imagined in my brain how people would judge me. And I did a lot of reflection and work. And I realized I was passing my own insecurities and putting them on other people, expecting them to be a reflection of what was in my head. So I have in many instances, especially, in fact, I had one woman that I dreaded her ever knowing that I was going to do something, because I felt like she would think I was silly and, didn't know what I was doing. And long story, very, very short, she confided in me something that she was doing that was a little side hustle for her. And she kept trying to ask probing questions of me, because I guess she was thinking something was going on. And when I told her, she was just like, oh my God, that is the greatest thing. So I mean, literally for like 2.5 years, I decided she was going to judge me. It was so ridiculous. So it was quite the lesson for me. And then but I do find that, if you ask your loved ones who want the best for you, like you said, fears come up for them, but they also don't get it. So you have to give them a ton of information for them to even get on the page where they can answer you properly. Like my poor husband, super supportive, and he'll sit and listen. But, occasionally I've gone and just go, maybe I'm not the person. Maybe I can't do this. I mean, I'm just probably not built this way. And I really want him to go, you're doing great. You're doing fine. Occasionally he'll go, well, then don't do it. And I'm like, don't say that. So, and then as far as, I'm working on the website with Val Klein now. And she is, I'm going to basically be putting myself out there. So I also have to have thick skin and know that not everybody's going to like me, and not everybody, I'm probably going to get some comments. And I tend to be kind of sensitive to things. So one thing is kind of like if you have a 2-year-old, you want to get up expecting that you're going to see a tantrum that day, right? Because the child is 2 years old. So I want to get up, I want to expect that not everything is going to give me glowing reports, and that's okay. That's part of the deal. Even people who are successful in any business will tell you that they've been told cruel things. So it's okay. And as much as I had someone say this to me once, and I don't remember who said it, but she was saying that it's totally okay for people not to like you, because quite frankly, do any of us like everyone we meet? No, we don't. There's some people that I don't prefer the company of, and that's okay. So just maybe setting your expectations. But yeah, I do agree that when you ask people that you care about, or that care about you, sometimes it can just be very confusing, because you'll get 3 or 4 different answers. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm so much more confused now. So anyway, so that's a long answer to your question, but it's multifaceted, right? No, but
yeah. And I think we have to at some point stop asking people for validation. There's for sure, I think there's a time and place for feeling validated, and where you're taking things. Like, for example, when we do our market research interviews, right, as part of the Academy, we're always validating, like, is this thing I'm creating something that people are looking for to buy? And that's very valuable for us to know that hits the mark, or the languaging we're using is not jargon, and someone can understand what we're saying, or we're testing our ideas with real humans, and that's great validation. But when it's sort of like, should I do this or should I do that, or do you think I have it in me, to do this and be an entrepreneur? No one can really give you the answer. It's more about, do you want that to be you? Do you want to be that person? And you have to decide that you want to be that person, in order to do that. And I think everyone will give you an opinion, right? If you ask them, right? Now, Leigh, since I have you here, I know that you are, as you said, you're starting to get your website together. You had a blog up or something like that before, but now you really want to make it into a great digital presence, right? Where when you are blogging, there's intent to it. It's not just a journal online. It's something that's strategic and inviting people to this digital home that you have. And you're working with one of our really great community members, Val Klein, who came actually to do a guest expert last month to talk all about, websites. So you are now coming into that stage of beta testing, on, you're right, like looking at the framework about what you've created to offer. What has been the most valuable thing for you to have learned so far in your business building journey to get yourself in this mode of I'm now ready to show my work into the public world?
Really, I think clarity. I had to really get intimate with being clear on what I wanted to build the business on. And that sounds kind of contrite, but one of the first stages that we went through in ACC, or at least the stage that you advised me to start in, is just getting really, really clear and get clarity so that I can use the clarity to build, basically you discuss the clarity stage being the foundation that you build your house on. And that has allowed me to have a base to come home to when I get confused. So clarity, huge for me. And it fits my personality very well too, because I like to have things clear in my head. So I think I would try and I do some clarity, but then I'd rush because it seemed like people were telling me I need to do this and this and this. And so really just spending some good time getting clear on my home base was the most important thing for me.
And how did you sort of get that clarity? What were some of the steps for people who don't know how to get, what if they were in that position of going, what business should I start? And, what should I start creating? What were some of the things what did you do to get clarity in order to pursue your side hustle?
Looked at things like, what are the things that I feel passionate about? What are the things that light my fire or light my, light me up?
Your belly.
What are the things that I'm good at naturally? What are the things that my nurse practitioner role has, what skills that's developed in me, and what skills do I actually enjoy? And then also very important is how I want my life to look. Because even though I would call myself a reluctant entrepreneur, I really never had a goal of being an entrepreneur. I just had this passion and I wanted to use it. And so this entrepreneur journey is really just the tool I'm using to try and do that. So I think it's really important to me to design a life where I get fulfillment in the business that I create, that I help others, but that I also create some freedom for myself. I want to spend the majority of my life doing something that fuels me up while I help other people.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get sidetracked on someone else's program or someone else's track, because it's really super easy to do, where you just find yourself feeling like you got to do this, this, or that, or you've got to spend X number of hours in this. And you end up on a path and you end up in a place that's not even familiar. It's not the same place you wanted to be. So I think clarity in the beginning, as well as times at certain intervals, revisiting that and going, well, wait a minute, am I really going where I was meant to go? And what am I not liking about where I'm going? And how do I, pivot like we talked about earlier? So clarity, huge for me, and making sure that part of that was, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want my days to look like? Because my days make up my life. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point to make. It's like you're designing a business to give you that lifestyle you want. That's the goal, right? So I know a lot of times when you were designing your offer, how you approach that offer, how you facilitate that offer, was also based on like, what brings me pleasure? Like if I don't want to do, a 200 person course, if that's not my style, or I may not want to do one-on-one because I actually am better in a little bit more of a small group format. Or I want to be able to teach these parts, but I actually want to scale my effort by recording these parts, So it really is about not doing what you think you have to do, but what works for to provide great solutions for your clients, but also what am I going to do that has me having fun, doing it, where I can see myself showing up for my clients like this, where they're not like, I'm at their beck and call the whole time, because that's not going to be the life I want to lead. So you're willing to put in the effort of, creating structure around your systems and the content so that you're not in this sort of one-to-one mentorship capacity continuously. Right. And maybe part of your skill sets, Leigh, is that I think what has been great for you is because you are a great writer in a lot of ways. It's allowed you to create curriculum much quicker. right, than being sort of on your feet. You're not on your feet. Like I love just coming on and be like, what's the question? Let's go for it. And I'm horrible at curriculum the other way. Right. So it's like, I always try to make things happen in our programs, or even things like the webinars. What's more fun? A chat show is more fun. Way more fun than a bunch of PowerPoints. And, here's a webinar training again. But, a conversation is a little bit more interesting for me, and so you adjust those little pieces in your business to leverage your strengths, which I think is a great message to share as well. We've unfortunately lost Ina. I think she has just really bad connection in Bali, but that's okay. We've got tons of questions to go through anyway. And I want to ask Heather actually a different question. Heather, what was the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself or your approach on business since sort of going through multiple changes in your business? What have been surprising, like something you made up maybe, or been afraid of, but it never came true, or maybe something that you thought would break you, didn't? Or what are some of the things that have surprised you so far about the journey?
So much. The whole thing has just been such a huge learning curve, in a really good way. I just think, like what the comment Leigh made before about, talking to people who just don't get it. Like, I think this is part of the reason why we, struggle to have conversations with people, because even I don't really get it still. Like, I'm still kind of going through things, and I'm still realizing things about myself. And, I think one of the biggest epiphanies I've had, especially lately, is that, and it's maybe something I kind of knew before, but I didn't really see how it applied to business, is that I think I'm a much better big picture thinker than I am detail person, which is a little bit possibly ironic coming from a kind of a teaching background. But I think I really like the idea of like kind of the big ideas and the big conversations, and being a little bit controversial, and maybe, kind of putting some thoughts and, stuff out there, and kind of helping people with that maybe larger vision. And then when it comes down to the details, outsourcing that, or finding someone who has maybe a stronger, zone of genius for that. And I think I've kind of just realized that maybe in the last few months, where it's, there's certain aspects of maybe a business process that will involve the details, but I don't necessarily have to do those details. I can be inputting on them, but for me, what I want to spend my days doing, I think, is much bigger picture stuff, and much more almost holistic, I suppose, like Leigh, like even Leigh was saying. So, and I have to figure out still kind of what that's going to look like for me as a final, kind of an offer for people. But I've had that realization. And I think that part of that has just been doing the things. So I think a lot of things that I've been, kind of fearful around or holding me back is just the doing of the things. So it wasn't until I did these things that I was like, oh, wait a second, maybe I don't really love doing that. Like, it's whoops, like that, but you don't know until you do it. I mean, you genuinely don't know. And your brain can only create an idea based on previous experience. And if you haven't done it, your brain's just going to kind of guess, and the guess isn't always correct. So I've realized, certain things, like I prefer to work with maybe groups or have kind of conversations like this rather than one-on-one. I don't think my strong suit is one-on-one, or it's not where I want to spend my days doing things like that. So there's lots of things, but I wouldn't have known that unless I'd done it. So I was beta testing my other idea, and I was doing a lot of one-on-one work with people. And it's not that it wasn't, not enjoyable into a certain degree, but, when I envision my days and going forward and creating my ideal life and living my life on my own terms, the way I want to spend my days maybe isn't necessarily always like that. So there's been a lot of epiphanies that I've had about myself personally and how I think I work best, that I want to continue to focus on, but I never would have known unless I had done this stuff. So I think that's, do the action, figure it, like, just do it, figure out whether or not you want to do it. And then when you find those things, keep doing those things. Like, don't switch it because someone says, well, you have to have a podcast, or you have to have a blog, or you have to start a course, or you have to, whatever. You just have to do the thing. Like you said, Lydia, you've pivoted, you used to do a lot of writing, and now you think, I just want to talk. I just want to have a conversation.
Yeah,
let's just talk. So
no more things that feel not joyful.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know. Again, I didn't know that, because everyone has a blog and you have to write in a blog. But I never was exposed to video 5-6 years ago. You know, it wasn't a
right.
thing just yet. And so it's sort of interesting. And I think sometimes when you find something that feels more joyful, you know, that feels easier, that feels more in the flow, that's the thing you go, that's for me. And I'm just going to master that and do more of that rather than spread myself too thin and do a bunch of stuff in business that is not necessary at all, you know? Now, I want to talk a little bit about beta testing, because this is a big question that comes a lot, and you have a lot of experience with the beta. Leigh, you're going into beta. So a lot of questions people have around beta are things like, how do I start getting beta clients, you know, right away when I haven't done the thing that I said I can do? Like it might be my first time. Like Leigh, you have a very different situation because you're sort of branching out from an industry you have credibility in. Okay. And then Heather, you were going into something completely different. What has been your experience in finding beta clients and working with beta clients? And actually, we have a very fitting question on our Ask a Question tab that I want to ask both of you later about pricing, going for free beta versus pricing at a lower cost. So first of all, Heather, when you have done the beta testing with your clients, because right now you've got paid clients, but you've also have some beta stage clients as well that you've dealt with. Where did you find these clients? How did you offer to beta test these services being a new person doing it, right? And what advice would you give around beta testing for the first time?
Right. So where I found the beta clients that I've worked with is really through my network or an extension of my network. So I put out a call through, you know, just people that I knew and explained specifically what I was looking for, the type of people that I was looking for. And well, actually, that's not maybe true. The beginning, I wasn't clear enough. And I think that was a big learning lesson. I think I was like, hey, I just want to work with people that want to, you know, do this. And so I got all these people. And then through the working with those people, I was like, ooh, I don't want to work with those types of people. I want to work with people who are at this stage. So that was first lesson is I kind of just put out a general call and I did get people. And through that process, then I was able to refine even more what type of people I wanted to continue the beta with. Right. Then I did a second round of beta where I was much more specific. And again, I just put a call out through my network. And, you know, as I've been going through this process and kind of building a business and exploring how to create business and working with people like through the Academy and with you, Lydia, like you're a great connector of people, you know, a lot of people and you're willing to always put people in touch. My personal network has grown a little bit. So then, you know, whoever I'm connected to, they've got a big network. So oftentimes people will refer people to you and it's pretty helpful for people to come to you that way. So that's kind of how I found them. What was the second question?
How did you, like when you're the first time doing something and you know, you don't have credibility yet,
right?
How did you sort of convince them that, hey, you should like try this with me?
Right. So I was just really honest. So I would just like contact these people. I'd always have a call with them to explain what I was doing. And I would say, you know, I would just basically tell them, I would say, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I need, you know, some real live people to test it with. But I'm not telling you that you know, I think I can help you and here's why I want to work with you because you're in a position or a business or a stage that I want to work with or explore working with. Here's my ideas and here's what I want to kind of test as to where I can take you. I don't know if it's going to work, but if you and I work together and do some mutual feedback through the process, then that'll help me refine my you know, offer and services, as well as still help that person. So I was always really clear that this was a give and take. I wanted to make sure that I did help those people in some capacity, you know, with whatever it is they were working on. And also for them to be really honest with me. Like if something wasn't working or they weren't finding something valuable or they were equally, just to be really honest and just say, hey, Heather, I like this, or I didn't like when, you know, this doesn't seem helpful, or I don't see how that fits in, because everything was a learning process. So, I put stuff in writing. I would send them a little bit of a document just to say, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I want from you. Here's what you can expect from me. Yeah. And then here's kind of what the end process is. My strongest advice for people would be to, be very as clear as possible as you can in the beginning about the type of beta people you want to work with, like refine it down to the point where you think it's so niche. Yeah. These people might not even exist, because they do. And the broader you are, trust me, the worse it's going to be for your research, basically. So if you can kind of narrow it down to as specific as possible. And then from there, if something about that doesn't work, your control factors are a little bit easier to determine as well. So if you were working with a broad group of people and one person was doing this, another person was this and this and this and this type of business, then if things don't work, you don't really know which factor was to tweak. So if you're really specific and you go, there was this one little part. Okay, so I know I need to work with people at this stage, not this stage. Okay, let's move here. Be really refined at this point, and then tweak things slightly as you move along. And then also be really clear with the beta clients about the process and the beginning and the end time frame. Do not let this drag on. Do not like the mistake I made in the first beta round, which was being so grateful that someone was willing to give you the time and their time and whatever, that you kind of suddenly were giving them everything. And that's not what it should be. That's not what this should be, you know, and people need to be respectful of your time and your energy as well. This is not, they're doing you a favor, yes, but you're also doing them a favor. So you have to really acknowledge that you're offering them some sort of value as well. Otherwise they wouldn't have agreed to, you know, work with you. So,
I think here's the thing is that like beta testing, for all of you guys that are listening that don't know what beta testing is basically is testing a version of your idea. Or sometimes, like I did a test of beta for 3 months for my entire, what I thought was going to be my coaching program in the beginning of time, because I didn't know if I wanted to coach. Am I going to get annoyed by people's problems? Is this actually more of like a blog I want to write, not a coaching business? Because I didn't know what that looks like. So I sort of needed to, because I'm kind of a perfectionist. So I was like, I will dedicate 3 months to 8 people, because I like really didn't want to invest time unless I had to. But I also had a different business at the time. So I wasn't hustling for a dollar. I had, you know, revenue coming in from my first business, and this was sort of more of an experiment. But beta testing allows you to sort of, before you start to have a website and, you know, like start charging the big dollars and, you know, and be unconfident in charging money. It's a sort of a buffer room, a bit of like a guinea pig lab that you can go, hey, I'm not telling like everyone that I'm working with everyone. I'm handpicking, you know, who I'm choosing to work with. And the great benefits of beta testing is like, make sure that whatever you've crafted as a process or whatever that you're solving in your offer actually works with more than one person, and also works off paper, right? It might look great on paper, like all these things I'm going to teach people, but when you actually implement it with a real human and how it integrates with their life, you know, and so forth, it might be a very different picture. Maybe you've put on too many concepts and they can't absorb it, or it's too advanced for that type of person that came to you for this problem, and all of a sudden you went into like level 2, right? But the whole point of beta is sort of testing what those boundaries are in your offer, testing what is too much content versus good, you know, great to know content that's really relevant to where they're at, and also how people are absorbing. Sometimes if you're doing exercises or you have modalities that you're sharing, how you share that could be confusing. Could be, you know what this looks like, or you're very jargony in how you know, talk about a concept, and that person didn't really hear it well. And so that's the best time to get that feedback, so that when you actually go into market, you're like, this is refined, and the languaging is very in tune with how people actually want to hear about this offer, you know? So Leigh said in the chat box, she loves this topic. Another Leigh, by the way, how can I beta test a few different things within my network without them getting confused or lose credibility, that I know what I'm doing and who I'm serving? That's a great question. Anyone on the floor? I don't know if Leigh, the one on screen anyway, and Heather, what do you think? What would be your advice before I get into what I would want to say about that? How does she beta test a few different things within your network, within her network, without them getting confused or losing credibility, that I know what I'm doing and know who I'm serving? What do you guys think?
I think you just need to be honest again. Tell them that you're refining your process to be able to best serve and best offer your service to people. And the only way you're going to know that is through offering either a few different routes or working with a few different people to find out exactly what you just said, the language that they're using, the actual pain points that they're talking about, and then how you take them through that process to solve those pain points. Because again, what you might think is a great idea, when you go to put it into practice, may not work. And the only way you're going to know that is by actually doing it. So I think, I mean, I guess unless you're testing something completely different, but I think within your own network, I think people are a lot more accommodating and supportive than you realize, especially when it's, you know, a low cost or free offer that's going to benefit them as well. You know, you'd be surprised at how willing people are to help you out, to help refine your process. And if it's going to help you do better business and better service, you know, people are pretty willing to help.
Yeah. And also, Leigh, like, well, here's the thing about credibility is that very likely, you know, you're probably making a lot of things up that people are judging you. Just like the other Leigh was saying, it's like, I thought my colleague, but actually she was like totally on board, and she was like, is like a huge supporter of your work now, you know? So a lot of times we tend to think that people are judging, but they're not. And also we can make this sort of, you know, people always think like, I can't start to share my passions or my interests until I get it down packed and perfect. And that's what I think you're really asking, Leigh, is like, how do I start sharing that things I'm curious about and sort of interested to pursue without it being set in stone? Just in case I pivot later on, I'm not a flake, right? Is that what you're asking, Leigh? Because I think that's what I'm reading through the words of what you mean. Because I too experience it. I'm like, what if I say I'm going to coach and then I don't want to coach and I want to do something else, and then I'll be this flaky person that sort of are just like that, you know? So I think how we approach that sharing, it can be adjusted to not feel so formal. It could be very much just like, hey guys, I've been, you know, in my industry for X amount of time. I've seen this problem happening for people. So like, I'm just going to use Leigh, the one on screen, as an example. Like, she's been in the medical field and been a practitioner for a while. She is doing something slightly different with wellness. You don't have to, you know, talk bad things about your industry, but you could say, hey, my many years of being a part of this industry has taught me that wellness is a holistic thing, just like exactly what you said. It's really not made me realize that a lot of people are really uneducated when it comes to their health. They leave it to doctors and leave it to whoever they see and take no responsibility for their own health. And therefore, when things start to go south, they don't know what to do. They don't have the accountability to look for the right practitioners, to look for maybe it's not Western medicine all the time. Maybe some Eastern medicine that's actually better for you, but you're not going to know what you need unless you know your own body, unless you know your own health conditions, you know? So I want to take back that responsibility, not from just the doctor's, you know, perspective all the time, that regular people should be a little bit more responsible what they put in their mouths and how they're, you know, generating energy for themselves, and some day-to-day practices that can probably improve their health without it resulting to a doctor's appointment. You know, so you can actually share like the beliefs you have about how improvements can be done in a line of work or an idea that you have, and not to say I'm the expert in this. You don't have to say that. You can say I have, you know, it's really instigated some fire in my belly to actually contribute to this work. Now, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but what I am sure of is that I want to be a part of this conversation. I want to actually start talking to women that are experiencing these problems, and I want to actually start to help. So if you know anyone, or if you are this person that suffers with XXXXX, please come on a call with me, and I will love to share some advice for you, that what I've gone through, you know, and what I do know, and help you out in exchange for some information, or exchange for, you know, me seeing if I can help you. We'll have a bit of a beta round about what that looks like, right? As Heather said, being really honest. Now, the other Leigh is getting very confusing. Chat box Leigh. if you are not in that same position as screen Leigh, where you have experience in an industry, and you're doing something like Heather, where it's completely a different career. Now, here's the thing. We have to start looking into our life story to build that credibility. Credibility is not always into just what we have done in our resume. Credibility is in, you know, some of the skill sets that you bring to the table that is extracted from your old corporate background into this new path. So in the beginning of our conversation, we talked about Heather's journey of being a teacher. Now, being a teacher helped you to develop some skill sets, right? To learn how to talk about things in 12 different ways, because you've got kids with ADD, and you've got all sorts of learning curves and learning styles, right? That's what you learn as a teacher, right? To like account for all these learning styles and digestion of information. That can actually be very valuable in terms of being a social storyteller, you know, because when you're a storyteller, you have to think of kind of fun, engaging ways to talk to different types of people that can be coming into your brand. So actually that skill set is very relevant, right? But we have to look into that and mine for it, sort of go, how does this translate? How can it repurpose to a cause that's different? Right? Or goal that's different. So chatbox Leigh, if you don't have experience doing the thing that you knew how to do, think about how your life experience or your professional experience can lend a hand in actually giving you some strengths to leverage to be able to do this well, you know? Or if it's a topic that, hey, I have a lot of clients that are like in the weight loss industry, where they're talking about, you know, how to deal with weight loss or how to eat healthy. And they're not nutritionists all the time. They're not someone that's sometimes certified to talk about that. But where the credibility lies is their own story, what they've done for themselves to be able to make that happen. They're not saying it works for everybody, but here are the concepts that has worked for me, and I'm happy to share them. You know, and part of your own solving of your own problem is actually credibility, because you've walked the talk, you've gotten yourself to a better place, you know, and that is credibility. So don't always look at your resume, but you can repurpose a lot of skill sets there and think about that deeply, and also think of your life story as credibility too. Because if you're alive and you've managed to get through the struggle, you know, breathing and alive, that is something to highlight and actually talk about. Okay, hope that was helpful. Now, one quick question before, thanks, Leigh, glad that resonated. Someone had a question by email, Jerry, I think. Let me just get back in here. Whoever wants a show of hands, whoever wants to answer this question. Jerry says, I do have a lot of experience working with a variety of people's problems on a one-on-one level, but just hasn't always been specific to my topic or passion, nor specific to my ideal client. Do you always advise totally free beta services? Is it worth it, or can it be a successful charging a low but still great price for people to get them more invested in your process and to get a little return on your own business investments? What do you guys think? What would be your thoughts around charging versus not charging for a beta?
Well, I think that people value what they pay for more. So I think there is something to be said for maybe exploring a low cost or a low price point beta to begin with. Probably, especially like if it was something like, say, you know, in Leigh's, like Lee's experience, where you do already have like many years of experience. You're just kind of, you know, transferring, you know, moving this into a different kind of offer. You've got a lot of credibility already. You've got, you know, you're well known in your network for it. I think, you know, for someone like Leigh to be charging for her first beta would be perfectly reasonable. And I think that people who would be willing to pay for that would be trusting that Leigh is, you know, even if she's in this beta process, that what they're going to get out of that process is going to be valuable enough to pay some sort of price point for. Yeah. I think for me, I mean, this is kind of me, a personal thing too. I'm always so afraid to ask for the money. And you know, I always think my experience has to speak so much. And so I think I'll be curious to see what, I think I know what Lydia is going to say, but I think I think there is value also into kind of doing a little bit of an internship, you know, like kind of maybe doing some free work in exchange for testimonials and the experience of working with people to refine your process, as long as it's a very well-defined time frame. Again, like don't do it for a long time, you know, do it enough and have a set number of people you want to work with, or a set goal you want to reach in a really short time frame in that unpaid, you know, capacity, and then start transitioning into either a low price point or, you know, whatever. So yeah, I think there's value in both sides of it, depending on where you are in your business. Yeah, I think, or where you're bringing to the business.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it can be two situations. Like, you know, comparing you guys, it's like, you know, Leigh, you've got a backing of like credibility and certification and longevity in your career so far to bring to the table. Yes, it's a brand new business, you know, that you're doing, but actually what you're doing is not new. You do it right now, day to day with your clients. You do it in your life, right? And I think, you know, I did things for free, right? 8 of my first guinea pig clients were free. And actually, I'm glad I did it for free, because I'm just kind of that kind of person that gets very pressured by money too, you know? And to be honest, I didn't really know if I would even want to pursue that at all. So it was a bit more of a hobby for me in the beginning of time, and to experiment with like, hey, part of it was just sharing my story and helping people with some strategies that I know how to do. There were simple things in the beginning, how to budget for their escape, you know, nothing to do with business stuff. It was stuff I already knew really well about. And then it felt really like I was just sort of like, you know, hosting a meetup almost, like, and just sharing advice. And that felt really easy and cool to do. Now, at some point, I do agree that you can offer things for free if that helps you to get started and helps you to get a less pressure, you know, a way of testing your ideas, but have a cap on that. So it might be like your first 3 customers are beta, and that's free up to 30 days or up to 2 months, or however it is that you want to take to beta test your business. But then it's like, it's capped. Like after the 3 goes through as free, it's no longer free. You can raise your prices to go to an intro price, or you charge something that feels fair for where you're at. And always know that pricing grows as you grow. So your intro price might be for the next 3 customers. And after those 3 customers get the intro price, that's it. It's capped there too. And you move on to your middle price and so forth, right? So you can have caps. And I think it's great to do things for an intention, but don't stay there too long, because then you'll get resentful. right? When you're not making any money and you have to graduate yourself from that price, because you've done better and you have learned more, right?
Yeah.
Leigh, what do you think about that question about charging versus not charging?
Well, what my plan is I am going to step out doing one-on-one, like high touch coaching packages and consulting packages with people, probably ideally something like 3 months. I do still need to do some market research for women over 40 who are entrepreneurs and trying to narrow it down to get really, and then out of that market research, hopefully I'll get a pool of people. I'd like to hand select interested people to do a beta run with me. And I will definitely charge something, but I want it to be a price that they're getting a great deal. They're getting a lot of value out of it. And I'm going to be very upfront that this is my first run through on doing it this way. And I'm going to show up fullest for them. And I think I can show up fullest if I get some payment. But I think what Heather said is so true. You value what you pay for. So I want it to be fair on both sides. And I want it to promote both sides showing up fully for themselves. So on both sides. So I think it serves both parties for me to charge an inaugural, great deal. But it also teaches me the process and gives me feedback, gets me some input on what works, what doesn't, what tools I need to develop. And then ideally some testimonials. So I see it as a win-win, and I can feel really, really good about doing that. And so that's kind of what I'm going to do. So I'm definitely going to charge because I don't think it would work well if I didn't.
Yeah, and that's what feels right. Yeah, I think a lot of it is so individual, right? About how people feel about doing it. Like I knew if I charge, I would never have done it. It's just it's too much pressure for me. And so, and you do there's no right or wrong answer to that, Jerry. It's what, again, it's like specific to what you bring to the table, what experience you already have. And if it just gets you going to cap it at 2 people or 3 people to do that with the time limit, then you're not going to be resentful, right? And I think that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, excellent, ladies. Thank you so much. I mean, we could talk about all sorts of things around beta, but that seems to be a big question a lot of the times because people want to know what that journey looks like. Now, before we sort of end the chat show, and I've got more questions, but I won't ask them because we'll just stay here for another hour, and I'm mindful of your time. I want people to sort of be able to learn more about what you do, what you are looking for right now. So if you're looking for beta testers, you want to share a service that you're offering, where they can find you. I would love for them to be able to connect with you if they wish to. Where can people find you, Heather?
Well, you can good old Facebook. You can find me my personal profile under Heather Pollock. It was tagged in the post on the Screw the Cubicle Facebook page. So my personal page is tagged there. And also you can look me up. My business page is Desk and Design, which I'll link in the chat box, and you can have a look there as well.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. And Heather is actually someone I've hired personally to do all our social media. So if you've seen, actually, we've gotten tons of great feedback that's like, I see you all the time now and everything's really colorful and lovely. And I love the featured members. So Heather's been amazing at taking that. I am no longer, not that I'm not social and not on there, but I'm there when I need to be. But actually the day-to-day management of it and actually being able to re-engage actually some of our lurkers that have been there and featuring, really rewarding with our members with feature stories. Like it's things that I never had time for. I mean, you can't be everywhere in your business. So Heather's been an amazing social storyteller for us. And she takes the time to really understand like what feels icky to me, what feels authentic to me, and really strategize a plan that's custom to that voice rather than put me into, right, a sort of everybody does that thing and you do it. So Heather's excellent in that conversation and creating better conversations in our social community as well. So that's Heather you're probably looking at when you look at our Facebook page. Leigh, how can people find you or learn more about what you do? I don't know if you have your website going to be up and ready soon. And if maybe you're looking for betas.
I don't have a domain name chosen yet. We're debating between 2. But yes, it's coming soon, thanks to Val. The best way to probably reach out to me is my regular email, my full name, leighgistinger@gmail.com, if anyone is interested. And yes, I will be doing market research, like I mentioned before, ideally targeting women above the age of 40. I kind of envision them, women who are, I call them the walking well in my head, women that really don't have a diagnosed condition, but they have complaints of not looking the way they want to look, not having the energy that they once had. Maybe their mood is up and down. Maybe they experience a little more of the doldrums or anxiety than they used to. It's not a diagnosable complaint, but it's real. And those are the things that I think I specialize in and can help people with. And so I would like to interview those people and in exchange I'm going to offer 3 to 5 people a 30-minute consult just to pick my brain on anything that they wish to talk about. And then I will somehow alert everyone of my domain name when we get it. So
excellent. So I put the email for Leigh on there. Leigh, you might want to double check to make sure I've spelled that right. If I didn't, you can absolutely change that. Thank you guys for starting or being here with us. And I know you have tons of questions around things that we may not have answered today. And here's the thing. If you go into the chat box, even if you're watching the replay later on, I do check back into the chat box later on for people, because the replays are where we get most of the views as well. But if we didn't get a question answered for you, or we didn't touch upon a question that is urgent for you, just type it in the chat box or email us at hi@screwthecubicle.com. And I will be sure to answer your question personally, or do a live stream about it on our Facebook page and take some of those posts off Heather's hands so that I can do a bit of a live stream post for you guys. Thank you so very much for joining us. I hope that you got some value in, opening up the hood and seeing what actually really happens in the journey of side hustles and what we do to test out our ideas and how we can do that wherever you are in your stage of life, whether you're employed, in your mid-career, you've got children, you're single, you're traveling, whatever it is, everything is possible, but we do have to make time for that side hustle. And actually, to be honest, make it a priority. Just like a priority, we go to work, we go to the gym, whatever we need to do. If it's not serious, we just won't really spend time to do so. Okay. And again, if you guys are interested in coming on board for the Academy of Cubicle Crashers, a lot of you guys are emailing me about that. Click on the green button to take a look at what we cover in our 6-month program at the Academy. We really bring you from an ideation of not knowing what business to start to a launch of an idea. We do go through a lot of stuff like beta testing. You get that feedback in the council of people that will help you launch your beta test, and do the market research that is necessary. A lot of what we do around market research is not boring surveys that you need to do. Everything is conversational. Everything is holistic. Everything's doable, where you actually don't need to be fully trained in knowing how to do all these business practices that you think you have to know. That's also a big misconception. Very likely the steps that you're going to be learning are very logical, anyone can do it, but you just have to do it, and simplified in a way that you're actually going to do it in the leanest form possible. So we want you to get your side hustle up and running without the noise of distraction of technology or whatever you think you have to do to get your brand on board, but actually do great work. Stop trying to look good and start trying to be good in your work. And that's what we hope to instigate for you so that you can get noticed, because your work is what's going to get noticed, not your brand and your logo and so forth. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, my guests. Thanks, Heather and Leigh, for joining me. I'm very sorry that Ina couldn't. She just messaged me saying her Wi-Fi just was quite broken. But that's okay. We'll send out a bio about Ina and some links on her work. But hopefully you'll get to meet all of us at the Academy very soon, and say hello to us in our community on our Facebook page, on our Conventionalist page, and let us know any questions we can answer for you in the future. Thank you, ladies, for joining me for this wonderful conversation. I always appreciate these chats. Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Bye.
See ya.